A rich, creamy tart might seem like a challenge, but you'd be surprised at how easy they are to make, and I'm going to show you 3 different yet delicious ways to top them. And I'm extra excited to show you how to make the 3rd one. It's really special. To get started on our beautiful tart, we'll first get to work on our dough, and you're going to need a food processor. We'll throw in 250 grams of all-purpose flour, 100 grams of powdered sugar, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Close the lid on it and then give it a few pulses just to mix all those ingredients together evenly. Next, we'll toss in 127 grams of cold cubed butter, as well as half a teaspoon of vanilla paste. And again, reminder, vanilla paste and vanilla extract are the same thing. I just like vanilla paste a little bit more. Now I'm going to close the lid back on and give it another blending for about 15 to 20 seconds to incorporate that butter in the flour. We'll next throw in 1 whole egg and then give it another thorough blending until it turns into a dough. Keep blending it. It might be slow at first, but it'll eventually come all together into a ball. Now it should be slightly tacky and there's no real bounce back if you press your finger into it. I'll quickly dump it on the counter and squeeze it together, making sure to hydrate any loose bit of flour. Now this is more than enough dough for either a 9-inch or 11-inch tart, and it also just smells really good. It smells like vanilla. But we now gotta wrap it in plastic wrap and then throw it in the fridge to firm up for really an hour, but I'm gonna just do 30 minutes. In the meantime, this is a great opportunity to clean up all the stuff you just dirtied. It's not much, but it's always good to be cleaning as you go. Once the 30 minutes are up and our dough is chilled and firmed up a little bit, we're gonna take it out of the plastic wrap and then roll it out into a flat circular tart shaped disc. Also, don't be like me and forget to put parchment paper under your tart shell. Trust me, it makes it way easier to roll it out. And try to roll this out as evenly as you possibly can, and be careful with your fingers because the dough is still delicate. Once it's rolled out, you're gonna wanna grab your tart pan, and I'm using a 9-inch one. And the nice thing about these guys is that the bottom comes up, making it super easy to release your tart from it later on. Now you ideally want your dough to be a little bigger than the tart pan. Mine's way bigger, but it's all okay, it's all the same. To transfer it into our pan, I'm gonna lift up the parchment paper and roll our dough around our rolling pin. I'll then place our tart pan in the middle and then unroll the dough over the tart pan. Now you're gonna wanna make sure you're tucking that dough into all the edges of the tart pan and then press those edges on the side wall of the pan as well. If you have a lot of excess dough, what you can do is get a butter knife and then just cut it off at the rim of the tart pan. Now you should have a beautifully shaped tart dough, and we're gonna throw this now in our freezer to firm up for 30 minutes. We're also going to head on over to our oven and preheat it to 375 degrees convection bake. Now in the meantime, we're going to grab a small pot and we're now going to make our cream custard filling. In our pot, we'll throw in 400 grams of heavy cream, which is technically not traditional. This is going to have more of a crème brûlée kind of twist, but in that pot, we're also going to throw in 1 teaspoon of vanilla paste. Give it a mixing and then bring it to medium heat, letting it reach just below a simmer. Once it's getting a little steamy, we'll cut the heat and then let it infuse for 10 minutes. In the meantime, we're gonna grab a small bowl and then throw in 200 grams of granulated sugar, 60 grams of cornstarch, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Give it a thorough mixing with a whisk, and then you're gonna throw in 6 egg yolks. And let me show you my preferred method of separating egg yolks. You'll first crack your eggs whole into a small bowl. Once they're all cracked, with your hands, you're gonna gently scoop up the egg yolk and then roll the yolk in between your fingers. So long as you're being gentle, the yolk will stay intact and the egg whites will fall in between your fingers. From here, I'll drop them into a small container, and that's my favorite method of separating the egg yolks. If you don't like touching raw eggs, alternatively, you could just crack the egg in half and then bob the yolk back and forth in between the eggshell. The whites will fall and then you'll be left with just a yolk. Speaking of the egg whites, do not throw them away. We'll be using them very shortly. Back to our bowl, we're gonna mix everything together with a whisk, and it's gonna get a little clumpy at first, but just keep mixing it until you get something that looks like this. Now our milk and vanilla paste have been steeping for 10 minutes, and now we're going to incorporate it into our eggs. I'm going to pour all of it in a large measuring cup, and I'm going to wrap a towel around our bowl so it doesn't move around as much. Now I'm going to pour just a little bit of our hot milk mixture, making sure to whisk it in really quickly. I'm going to keep doing this, adding a little bit more milk each time. What we're doing here is tempering the eggs, so we're getting the eggs gradually up to the temperature of the milk. If you poured it all at once, the eggs will start to cook and curdle curdle, but if you do it gently, it won't do that. Once about half the mixture is in there, you can just pour the rest of it and mix it in. Now I'm gonna pour that mixture back into our pot and then set it to medium-low heat. What we wanna do now is thicken this mixture gently, and we wanna make sure we're constantly whisking or it will overcook. You'll feel it thicken as you whisk, and you really don't wanna hit it with too much heat too quickly. If it starts bubbling, you are overcooking it. Here's a look of me screwing up my first attempt when I'm trying to strain it through a strainer. You can see I hit it with a little too much heat, and our mixture is overcooked and lumpy in some parts versus being smoothly thickened. I was hoping to push it through a strainer here, but there's no pushing that sucker. That's just a lumpy mess of cooked eggs and custard. And then this is me realizing I screwed up, and now I have to go to the grocery store just to get eggs because I used my last 6 eggs. Damn it! But don't worry, because after a quick trip to my downstairs deli, I got some more eggs and a croissant sandwich to make me feel a little better. After a few grumpy bites, I was ready for my second attempt. I tempered my eggs gently with the milk again, and I also made this weird screeching sound. Now this time, I'm gonna gently heat up our mixture, and don't be scared to pull it away from the heat early just to make sure you're not overcooking it. Once you got it into a thick enough consistency, we're gonna pour it into a bowl with a strainer to strain out any tiny little lumps. You should be left with a super smooth but thick kind of custardy tart filling. Now the thickness here is much better than before, but I actually would thicken it just a little bit more. It's not bad, but I think it needs to be just a little thicker. Now we're gonna set this to the side to cool, and now we're gonna pull our tart pan out of the freezer, which is partially frozen. With a fork, you're gonna lightly dock the inside of that tart just to help it in the baking process. And now from here, we're gonna grab a sheet of parchment paper, crumbling it up, and then opening it back up again, laying it inside our tart. And I'm also gonna pour some dry rice as well to weigh it down. You could use anything that's oven safe that'll prevent the tart from rising while it's baking in the oven. Speaking of the oven, we're gonna now throw our tart in there, letting it bake for 20 minutes. At the end of the 20 minutes, we're gonna remove the parchment paper and the rice, and you should have a beautifully baked tart crust that's gonna be able to hold anything we throw into it. I'll push the tart up out of the baking pan, and now I'm gonna let it cool fully to room temperature. Once the tart and your filling has cooled, we're gonna now pour our filling into the tart, letting it spread out nice and evenly. Now to finish it, we're gonna throw it into our fridge to let that custard set and chill for ideally overnight, but at least a couple hours. The next morning, your custard should have set perfectly, giving you a beautiful, stunning tart. And surprise, surprise, I made 2 more tarts because now it's time for what I think is the most fun part, which is decorating it. And watch me almost drop one of the tarts.
Ooh, okay, that was close. I didn't like that one bit.
Our first version will be a classic strawberry tart with a little blueberries and apricot jam over top of it. To start this off, we're gonna grab some strawberries and we're gonna cut the root off of them and then slice them nice and thin. You want it to be as thin as possible, but you want it to still hold its shape. It's not falling apart and it can't hold its own structure. Now I'm gonna grab one of our tarts as well as some blueberries, and I'm gonna place down a few of them kind of sporadically. Next, I'll grab our sliced strawberries and then place them around each of our blueberries. My decoration skills are lacking, but I filled in the rest of the gaps with our strawberries and I thought it looks decently okay. Now to finish this, we're gonna set our tart to the side and then grab a small pot as well as some apricot jam. Setting our pot to low heat, we're gonna throw in about 6 to 7 tablespoons of jam. I just said 6, 7, oh my god. Now we just wanna warm this up so everything gets a little bit more loosened and easier to work with. Once it's nice and runny, we're gonna now grab our tart again and we're gonna grab a brush, dabbing the brush in the jam and then brushing it over our tart. This will give your tart a nice little shine, which makes it extra appealing to the naked eye, and it'll give you some contrasting flavors as well. You should throw it in the fridge afterwards for 30 minutes just to firm up that jam, but now you have one of our tarts done. A beautiful apricot and strawberry / blueberry decorated tart, stunning for every occasion. Taste-wise, I consider this more to be a classic tart. Plenty of creaminess from our custard and acidity from that fruit to cut through that creaminess. For our second tart recipe, we're gonna be making a cranberry gelée kind of topping, give you a nice, beautiful layer of cranberry jam on top. To start, you're gonna need a medium pot and you're gonna need 12 ounces of whole cranberries, either fresh or frozen. I'll pour our cranberries into our pot and then I'll realize I need a slightly bigger pot, so I'll pour it into a bigger pot. And then I'll think to myself, oh, maybe I'll use a pan instead so you guys can easier see it. So I'll pour it into a pan and then I'll change my mind and pour it into that second pot I was using earlier.
I just love giving myself extra pots to clean right now. I don't know why.
Now, along with our cranberries, we're gonna pour in 200 grams of granulated sugar as well as half a teaspoon of salt. Set your heat to medium low and then constantly stir your cranberries until everything starts to break down and turn into a jam. It'll take a few minutes and it would be faster if we cut the cranberries in half first, but I feel like that's a little tedious, so I just throw them in whole and then smash them up. Once your cranberries have softened enough where they can easily be pressed against the side of your pot, you're next going to grab an immersion blender, sticking it into your pot and then blending everything until smooth. You can use a regular blender if you don't have an immersion blender, but once it's all blended up, we're going to grab a small bowl and a sieve and then pour our mixture into that sieve. Now we're going to strain out any of the seeds and chunks that might be still in there, and in the end you should have this nice little paste that's left over. And don't forget to scrape the back of the strainer as well. That's like the best part, super smooth and delicious. Now our cranberry sauce is a little too thick, so we're gonna thin it out a little bit with some water. So I'm gonna pour some in and try pouring in a little bit more than what I did. It thinned it out nicely, but not enough. It needed to be a little thinner. Once it's thinned out perfectly, we're next gonna throw in half a packet of gelatin. This will help thicken it, so that way when we pour it over our tart, it's a nice, smooth, perfect layer of gelatin that's hardened. Also, make sure the cranberry sauce is still hot when you add the gelatin, or else it won't activate. After the gelatin is fully dissolved and been mixed in, you have a beautiful cranberry jam that's still a little too thick. Again, add a little bit more water. But I'm gonna grab our tart now and I'm gonna pour our jam over it, making sure to spread it out nice and even. Now you're gonna wanna throw this in the fridge for 30 minutes so it firms up, but you should have a beautiful tart with a cranberry gelée on top. You could hit it as well with some lemon or lime zest to add another little layer of visual appeal. Flavor-wise, this thing tastes insane. The cranberry gives you a ton of contrasting acidic flavors that really cuts through all the creaminess of the tart. And if you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe button. It helps this channel out in so many ways. And now for our last cranberry topping, we're gonna be making a beautiful toasted meringue. First thing we're gonna need is a stand mixer, and in that stand mixer, we're gonna throw in the 6 egg yolks that we had saved earlier. I'm also gonna pour in 1/4 teaspoon of white distilled vinegar, which apparently stabilizes the meringue, and I'm gonna grab 300 grams of super fine sugar. This is different than regular sugar. It's much finer, which will give you a smoother meringue with no gritty lumps. But we're not gonna pour it in just yet. Instead, we're gonna turn our stand mixer on to low and then gradually bring it up to medium speed to turn our egg whites into a little bit of a frothy mixture. Once they start getting a little foamy, we're gonna throw in 1 tablespoon at a time of our super fine sugar. You want to do this gradually. If you don't, it will ruin the consistency of our meringue. Once all the sugar is incorporated, we're going to keep it at that medium-high speed until we get firm peaks. What does that look like? Well, this is an example of a soft peak. It's a little too flimsy and it just kind of flops over. I mixed it a little bit more and I stopped at this, which is actually like a firm to semi-soft peak. I want to be able to hold its shape like it's doing here. Now you can 100% do this with a hand mixer, but I would caution you against doing this by hand yourself. You kind of need that aggressive mechanical strength that a stand mixer or a hand mixer can offer. Now I'm gonna grab our tart and then throw down some heavy dollops of our meringue, smoothing it out just a little bit before roughing it up and giving ourselves some nice little peaks to work with. It should look something like this, and those little peaks are important because now it's time for my favorite part, toasting the meringue. We're gonna grab a blowtorch and then bring it up to our meringue and lightly toasting the exterior of it. Be careful not to put too much heat on it because it can burn, but it's okay. A little toastiness doesn't hurt. This part is so much fun and is a great activity for families so long as you're being safe and careful. By the end, this is how much I toasted it, and I was incredibly proud at how it looked.
Whoo! Baby, does that not look stunning? Woo! Extra jazzed up about this sucker right now.
And now you have a beautiful toasted meringue tart that looks absolutely stunning. Taste-wise, if you like rich desserts, this is ultra creamy and super luxurious. All three of these tarts are insanely delicious and will stand out for any special or normal occasion. If you want more dessert recipes, here's the link to my 3 amazing holiday dessert recipes. They're super fun and delicious. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.